Greetings everyone, welcome to Bad Commentary. Let's get started. Before we get into it, there are spoilers for episode 2 of Loki ahead. If you've not yet seen it, bookmark this post and come back to it once you have. The first episode of Marvel Studios' Loki was about world building, a requirement when introducing viewers to a concept as big as the Time Variance Authority and the Timekeepers. Now that things have been explained, the series can move ahead at full steam, and that's what episode 2, The Variant, does. So hold tight because things are going to move pretty fast from here on in. With a 50-minute runtime, the episode is packed with set pieces and some classic Loki humor, as Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson continue to solidify their position as the MCU's best duo. So sorry, Sam and Bucky. However, the episode also manages to remain as deep and profound as the one before it, with Loki learning more about himself and his purpose. There is, of course, a huge reveal at the end, so keep on watching as we'll drop that spoiler in just a moment. The hooded figure that is currently being chased across time by the TVA is revealed to be none other than a female Loki. It had been rumored that Sophia Di Martino would be playing the character known in the comics as Lady Loki, and at the end of this week's episode, we get confirmation. "This isn't about you," she says to Hiddleston's Loki as the two face off in a supermarket about to be destroyed by a hurricane. She's right, of course, because it was actually about her. Just before vanishing through a time gate, Lady Loki does some serious damage to the TVA's sacred timeline by detonating every one of the reset charges she's been stealing from the TVA whilst on her travels. Of course, Loki, our Loki, jumps in after her, much to Agent Mobius' dismay, and the episode ends. So after episode 1 putting the pieces in place, the cliffhanger this week signals that Loki on Disney Plus is most definitely up and running. Lady Loki, it turns out, has had a plan all along. She's been traveling across the timeline stealing reset charges, bombs that destroy the timeline in their immediate blast radius. After collecting the reset charges, she has been hiding out in the shadow of Nexus events, apocalyptic disasters that destroy everything and everyone around them, such as a hurricane. These Nexus events are Lady Loki's method of avoiding detection. Because an apocalypse cannot be stopped, her presence doesn't register with the TVA, making it impossible to track and catch her. But why is she interfering with the timeline? Could she be trying to reset the MCU? In episode 1, we saw Loki broken down to his lowest point. He saw how his actions inadvertently killed his mother, and it seemed as though he had been redeemed. But in episode 2, he does his best to convince us that it was all just part of a cunning plan. So when he and his new TVA buddy cop partner Mobius travel to a medieval reenactment in the 1980s USA, Loki tries his best to cut a deal. He insists that the evil Loki they're trying to catch has lured the TVA into a trap. He could help them, but only if he gets some assurances about his safety going forward. Oh, and he wants an audience with the Timekeepers too. Not much to ask, really. It's a brilliant performance by Loki as he tries to convince Mobius of his good intentions. Any other time, it may have even worked. "You almost had me," says Mobius as he realizes that Loki is just exploiting his position to get in front of the Timekeepers, and in doing so, has given the evil Loki enough time to escape capture. WandaVision started as a sitcom, moving into the space of traditional Marvel as the series concluded. So far, Loki seems to be carving out its own, unique place within the MCU, with a tone similar to Terry Gilliam's Time Bandits via Wes Anderson and 1970s Doctor Who. Episode 2 continued to prove that Marvel Studios are committed to writing in-depth character pieces while delivering the usual action beloved by Marvel fans. We get to see Loki travel to Pompeii just before Mount Vesuvius erupts to test his theory on Nexus events. "You're all going to die," he says in Latin as the volcano begins to erupt. It's a hilarious moment that shows how versatile an actor Hiddleston is. What works the best in this episode is the interactions we get between Loki and Mobius. Loki, as a character, is someone we are used to seeing have the upper hand. Always when you think he's one thing, he turns out to be something different. He's always been one step ahead, but in Mobius, he seems to have met his match. For example, his assertion is that Loki was just a scared little boy who took the wrong path. Loki has other ideas. "I know something that children don't. No one bad is truly bad, and no one good is truly good." It sounds profound, and it is. If this series has an overall theme, it could be that you shouldn't believe your eyes and be prepared to see good and bad everywhere.